Bonjour and welcome to this video where I shall go over my Green Goblin costume. But first, a word from our sponsor Oscorp Industries, who have very kindly given me a sample. They said it's not lab tested yet, but I mean this is just tea. They're green tea, I may add. So I'll just give a little review of it on camera right now. Oh, that's really now that was something. What I put in this stuff at Oscorp. Now, on to the rest of the video. Take it away! Hello! Welcome! Say hello, Goblin.
Hello, Goblin.
So, today, in this video, I shall be going over how I created this.
Me.
So, first things first, I just want to say that this isn't the first time I've actually made a Green Goblin costume. No. 4 years ago, 2017... Is that 4 years ago? Well, it's 5 now, but technically it was 4 years ago. 2017, I made my first attempt at a Green Goblin costume. And if you are new here, you may not have checked out it's somewhere, the link to my original video, which I made 3 years ago. A year after I actually made it. I basically go over how I put different strips on, made out of faux leather material. The only problem with that was the faux leather material glued onto the suit made it very, very stiff and hard to, actually move around in.
Can't be stiff.
So I thought, what would be a more flexible material? And then I saw a comment on my old video saying, why doesn't he just plasti dip it? And then I thought, hey, that's not a bad idea. But what does plasti dip bond to really well?
Latex.
Latex.
That's what I just said.
So I decided I'm going to make the whole suit out of latex strips rather than leather.
We decided that.
So yeah, that's basically what this is. This is basically all latex. Like, there's no mannequin in this. This is actually holding its shape by itself. Yes, hello, Green Goblin.
Hello, Dan.
Hello. And all these pieces here are actually made out of foam. So I'm going to go over how I made all the latex pieces now. But I'm not going to say it because I am not very good at explaining myself personally. So I'm going to hand you over to a more...
smarter.
A better eloquated individual. Take it away, voiceover Dan.
Hello, this is voiceover Dan. Alright, so as you see here, the latex pieces were actually started off as EVA foam, with 2mm EVA foam strips onto 5mm foam. And the way I did this, I actually patterned it onto a mannequin. And if you don't know how to do that, I did cover it in my last video on how to make a Boba Fett armour. And I tried to make sure that all the pieces were flat, because then they'd just be a lot easier to mould. As you see here, I just hot glued it onto some cardboard and poured Crystal R moulding plaster over it. Crystal R is basically the UK equivalent of Ultracal. And then when I cast it out of the latex, I poured latex into the moulds, like this one. Now this one was actually very successful, so I basically poured slush cast the latex inside it, where I just slush it around the surface to make sure everything is coated. Now as you see there is plenty of latex inside this mould, and that's because I'm just going to let it sit upright for a few hours. This will actually cause it to get a very thick skin, making it a nice thick piece. Now this one of the edges actually came off when I was demoulding, so I put it onto a bucket at a 45-degree angle and then just poured the latex onto it. And so with that, it caused the latex to actually spill out at one edge, hence why I've got the bucket under it. So then it runs into the bucket, so then I don't waste any latex. And then after everything was coated, just like the first one, I then poured it out into the bucket. And so I did this for a few layers rather than make it have a thick skin, because since the latex was going to spill out in one area, if I laid it flat, I'm not able to do that with this. So I did that for about 5 layers. And then when they were both sitting flat, I then hit it with a heat gun on the lowest setting. You're going to want to do it on the lowest setting. Don't put it on the highest one, because then you'll actually cause the latex to burn. And you don't want to burn the latex, because then it will just ruin the casting completely and actually make it a lot weaker. So I basically did that with all the other pieces. Now the neck piece I wasn't actually able to make flat, because, well, the neck actually has a different shape to it. But after I patterned it up, I then glued on all of the half foam dowels onto it, the same which I've used on the arms. And there is the neck piece. This alone took about 3 hours to lay all the half foam dowels onto it. And I made the edges of it flat, so then that will have the shoulder sitting on it. If you want me to go over how to make plaster moulds, I'd be more than willing to make a whole video on it. And so now on to painting it. I used 4 different types of Plastidip, the regular black Plastidip, and this luxury metal Plastidip, which is basically just a metallic Plastidip. I used silver and green, and then I used this Metallizer Plastidip, which is just clear Plastidip with some metallic green flakes inside it. So I laid it flat outside on some newspaper, and then I sprayed it with the black first, because the black is a really, really nice, even colour for metal colours to go on, because black is, you know, really, really good for putting metal on. So I made sure I covered the whole thing, but I made sure not to make it too thick, because then some of it wouldn't cure properly, and it would then all the drips that you see on it, because this will drip, would be very obvious. So then once that was set, after one layer, I then put on the silver. Now the good thing about spraying Plastidip on latex is you only really need about 1 good layer on it. Unlike foam, where you need to do a few layers before it actually takes the colour. But with latex, since it is rubber, just like Plastidip, Plastidip bonds onto latex very, very well. And so I just make sure to cover the whole surface with the silver Plastidip. And then after I've done that, I then dust on some of the green. Now this green is actually quite dark, hence why I've got the silver before it, because then I'm just going to dust on the green to make it a nice, more brighter tone of green, rather than if I just slather the green on by itself. And as I said, I'm just dusting it onto the silver, because then the silver will show itself underneath the green, making it a lot more lighter. Now with the tubing areas, it was a lot more difficult, because you actually had to get underneath where the tubes meet. And that can be a little bit of a tedious process, but just do it back and forth, which is what I'm doing here. And then once that's dry, I then put on the last bit, which is the Metallizer. And this I just slather that on, very similar to what I did with the black and the silver. Because since this is quite clear, it won't change the colour of the actual latex, it will just make it look more green and more shiny. And I basically did that with all of the latex pieces, including the back pieces, the leg pieces, the rest of the arms. Except I did have a little bit of foam onto the arm, because there is a little detail there. And then I glued it on by stippling latex onto the spandex, waiting for that to set, and then doing that with the latex. Over to you, Dan.
Okay, so got the basic gist of how to make the latex pieces. Now I'm going to go over what these pieces are, because I don't know if you can see, but the colour on this is different to this, and that's because this is 3D printed.
Get off me.
This is 3D printed. Except the helmet. Now the helmet is actually from my original costume, which I made in 2017, where I actually sculpted it, moulded it out of silicone and then cast it out of fiberglass. Again, if you are new here, you won't know that I actually have done a video on it, where I basically go over it. I didn't really show me sculpting it, I showed progress photos of me sculpting it. But yes, I mean, if you want me to go over how to silicone mould something like this, I'd be more than happy to do that. Just leave a comment below and if I get enough, I will make a video on it. Okay, so these pieces here are 3D printed, as you see there. But I don't know if you can see, it's not exactly smooth on the inside, and that's because these pieces are actually from a file of a 3D printed bust. I'll put a picture up on here because I can't remember who made it. And so yeah, I basically cut these off of the model, hollowed them out and sized them to be the size for the costume. Same with the chest. And of course I did the usual 3D printing stuff where I sanded it down and then I hit it with a metallic spray paint, which is a Motip metallic green, and this is absolutely great for 3D printing 3D printed objects. But the only problem is it wasn't the same shade as the rest of the costume. You can see that it is now, but that's because I did a little technique where I got some clear Plasti Dip, because of course, as I went over before, all this is actually coloured with Plasti Dip, even the foam armour. And so I got some clear Plasti Dip, and while it was still wet, I just dusted on some of the metallic green, because as you see here, the neck is actually the same shade as this. And luckily, the Plasti Dip actually soaked up the colour, which actually coloured the Plasti Dip with this shade of spray paint, which kept it nice and flexible on the suit. It isn't too stiff. Now I'll just spin it around so you can see the back, because I kind of ran out of spray paint halfway through, and because I concentrated mostly on the back, and as you see here, the back looks pretty much exactly the same as the shoulder. So I just need to just finish painting it. But yeah, and that is it. Now, and yeah, so there we go. That is the end of the video. And Goblin has no head. There you go, Goblin.
Thank you. I now have no neck.
Yes, yes.
Why, Dan? Why?
Thank you very much for this video.
Don't
I hope you
ignore
enjoyed
me.
it. But if you didn't, I am very sorry.
I'm sorry.
He's very sorry too.